Tucson's Sanctuary City initiative stokes a partisan divide in Pima County.
There's a three-legged stool of disaster.
This is a civil rights issue for everyone.
Independent mayoral candidate Ed Ackerley on his campaign and running without a party.
I'm pulling from the Democratic side as well as the Republican side.
A Southern Arizona school district's successful approach to higher graduation rates.
Overall, they end up being passionate about it rather than intimidated by it.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Christopher Conover, filling in for Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us. Tucson's election this November could make history for a few reasons. Voters could elect either the city's first female, or the first independent, or the first Green Party candidate as mayor. And voters could also decide to establish the state's first sanctuary city with Proposition 205. The latter has its share of outspoken supporters and critics. In Pima County, the Democratic and Republican parties position themselves on opposite sides of the issue. We discussed those differences this week with party chairs Allison Jones and David Eppiheimer.
If I was forced to make a bet on it today, I would bet against. I don't think it will go through, but we and there will be a fairly large contingent of people working to defeat it, are not taking anything for granted and aren't sitting on our hands. So there'll be quite an effort to make sure it doesn't pass.
Allison, from the Democratic side, do you all see this going through?
You know, I do think it's going to be close. But from talking to the people who originated the initiative and gathered all the signatures, they tell me that people couldn't wait to sign those petitions. There is an enthusiasm for it, and I believe it's going to bring out people who haven't in the past been excited about voting. They have something they really feel strongly about and want to vote for. How it will fare, I don't know, but I think it's going to be close.
David, you said that the party will be working with the other groups who are opposing it. Allison, will the Democrats be working to get it to pass, or are you going to concentrate more on the mayoral race?
The Pima County Democratic Party has passed a resolution in support of the initiative. So we will be out there supporting it. Our PCs, our precinct committee people, will be out there meeting their neighbors and talking about it. We will also be out there for our Democratic candidates, of course. And we look upon this as an opportunity to get our PCs mobilized, meeting their neighbors, and doing what we did successfully in the last election, which was getting out the vote. And
I think it's interesting that Allison brought up that the Democrat Executive Committee is in favor of this when virtually all Democrat office holders are against it, including those who are running for office this November. It shows how out of step the Pima Dems are with the community and with their own office seekers and office holders.
In fairness, some of the Democratic office holders or candidates said their big concern is potential loss of revenue from the state and maybe the federal government if this were to pass. Mm-hmm. Any concern about that on your side?
Well, as far as federal funds go, this has been decided in a number of courts, and it's been found that it is not legal to withhold federal funds based on a sanctuary status. There are dozens of sanctuary cities already in the U.S. As far as state funds go, it's not entirely clear, but I can say this. The fact that this is an initiative and not a law that will have been brought forth by the City Council, I think makes it a much stronger statement, and it would be much harder to withhold funds from the city on that basis.
It's an interesting point, David, that this is a voter-approved initiative. This isn't the mayor and council passing something. Do you think that changes the legal end?
I don't think that changes anything. The governor and the legislative leaders have made it very clear that the state shared revenues, 100 million, 150 million, you hear all sorts of numbers in that range, will be withheld. And there are legislators right now putting through legislation for the next session that will make it illegal in Arizona to be a sanctuary city. So the lawsuits are coming if this passes, and it will be years before it is decided.
But the underlying question is, does it cross the SB 1070 line? And we believe it does not. The Sanctuary Initiative simply draws the line at what local police can do regarding stops and inquiries about immigration status. It does not do anything to stop federal immigration officials. It simply keeps police on their task of public safety at the city level.
But are Tucson police more or less doing that now? And Chief Magnus has come out against it.
Well, they are doing that now. They do have these orders. This simply seeks to codify it and make it more clear.
We don't feel that it has anything to do with 1070. I mean, that you hear that out of the supporters, 1070, 1070, 1070. It's just bad policy for Tucson. There's a three-legged stool of disaster coming to Tucson if this was to pass. There's a public relations disaster, there's a public safety disaster, and there's an economic disaster that's coming to Tucson. And on that basis, this should not pass. It's bad for Tucson and will eventually make Tucson a ghost town.
Do we really want our local police to be able to stop people based on the language they're speaking, the way they dress, or whether they have window tinting? This is a civil rights issue for everyone. If our police are able to stop people on that basis, we're all in trouble.
As Chris just noted, Chief Magnus has already said that his department is not doing those things currently. Chief Magnus, also a Democrat, also has come out strongly against this as the wrong thing for Tucson.
We closed out our conversation by shifting the focus from sanctuary cities to Tucson's mayoral race between Democrat Regina Romero, Independent Ed Ackerley, and Green Party write-in candidate Mike Cease. No Republican. Some people say Republicans are just ceding the city. What's your reaction?
Nothing could be further from the truth. We had two candidates for mayor, Konarski and Sam Nagy. Both were candidates for mayor. They did not get their signatures. That's on them. They didn't get their signatures. I went out and talked to quite a few Republicans who live in the city and talked to them about running as a write-in. And most of them, in fact all of them, said no. You know, Republicans are outnumbered 2-1. Republicans who live in the city don't want to put their businesses on hold, put their families on hold, put their life on hold to go out and get creamed in the general. So we made a strategic decision not to run a write-in candidate and leave Republican voters in the city with the option of voting for leftist Regina Romero or vote for a centrist Ed Ackerley. We think that was a very good political decision.
I frankly don't understand how the small number of signatures needed to get on the ballot couldn't be met by Republicans. But be that as it may, we had a wonderful primary with 3 excellent candidates. Ms. Romero prevailed with over 50% of the vote at the end of the count. And the energy behind her campaign was tremendous. That energy is continuing on. All Democrats are behind her now, no matter how we were split up before amongst these 3 candidates. We are now behind Ms. Romero, and I can't wait to see her be our next mayor.
All right, well, thank you both for sitting down with us.
Thank you very much. Look forward to meeting with you after the election.
Yeah, would love to come back and rehash what happened.
Oh, I'm sure this will be a fun one to talk about.
Yes.
While the Democrats vying for mayor spent the last few months focused on the primary, Ed Ackerley used that time to build support for the general election. As the only independent to qualify for the ballot, he had no primary opponents. But after last week, Ackerley knows who he will face in November. At his office, we discussed how that shapes his campaign approach going forward. Ed, you're running as an independent. There are plenty of people out there who say independent has no chance here. Registration numbers, Democrats have it. Why run as an independent?
math. Well, we did the analysis. There are 59,000 Republicans, 80,000 independents. You put those two numbers together, it can give a challenge to the Democrats, who have about 120-some thousand. So it's just a math thing. Put the numbers together in the right way and have a path to victory. So we would think that would be a good way to do it.
No Republican on the mayoral ballot. Does that help you in this case?
I think so. I think that I'm surprisingly pulling people from both sides. I'm pulling from the Democratic side as well as the Republican side, and certainly that big bulk of people in the middle that are the independents.
So what's your elevator speech or your standing on the corner shaking hands speech? Why do you want to be mayor?
I want to help fix Tucson, the problems that we've seen over the last several years: public safety, roads, fix the roads, stimulate economic activity, and certainly take a look at the parks. We have a $225 million bond, but we need a lot more repair on the parks to get them up to where they need to be. So those four issues are the core issues. I think public safety is the biggest issue that we look at, because we have a low employment for the police, and we need to bolster that. And certainly the number one issue I hear out on the campaign trail is fix our roads. Please fix these roads.
You're running against someone who, to those at least who pay attention politically, is a known commodity. Your opponent, Regina Romero, has been on the city council for many, many years. You've been involved in the community for decades, but maybe not everybody knows you. How do you get your name out there against someone who's well known?
It's fortunate that for the last 44 years for me personally, and 51 years for my company, Ackerley Advertising, we are in the promotion and advertising business. So we're going to do a really good job of getting our message out to the community over the next 60 days to let them know who I am and what my platform is and what my ideas are for helping Tucson into the near future.
On the issue of roads, one of Ackerley's top priorities, he supports an initiative in Pima County to reauthorize the Regional Transportation Authority beyond 2026. He wants to use some of its funding for maintenance. To free up more money in Tucson's budget, Ackerley says he would look at ways the city and county can consolidate some services and functions.
There's also many duplication of efforts, the city courts, county courts. There's some duplication of effort, parks, that we could combine, and not necessarily combine the departments, but share like we do when we have in the city prosecutor's office and in plans review and so forth. There are some places where we might be able to share resources, which will then cut down that duplication of effort. We need some redundancy in the county and the city. For instance, the 911 center is a good example. There's two full functioning 911 centers. But there's a redundancy there, and should one go down, then it can be immediately transferred to the other. So that type of redundancy is okay, but there is some place where we can move to maybe consolidate some of that government. And there has been a resistance to that on the part of the city over the last few years, but I think as mayor I could lead that charge into helping us save some money and also be more efficient with what we do.
Normally in Tucson, the mayoral race is the top of the ticket, but we have this sanctuary city initiative that's getting a lot of attention. Early on in your campaign, you and I talked, you said you were against it. You've been out on the campaign trail. Any change in that?
No change. Against the initiative and against the concept of sanctuary cities in general. Labeling ourselves a sanctuary city just is not in the best interest of Tucson for the current climate. I'm not against helping people and not helping people get adjusted to a new country, but we really need to focus on the core issues of public safety, transportation, and parks and economic development. And to be dissuaded by an issue that is really a federal issue is probably not in the best interest of Tucson in the near future and moving forward.
If that initiative passes and you are elected mayor, will you defend it?
Absolutely. As a mayor and the council, we're required by law to follow the law, and we will do whatever we have to do what we need to do to abide by those laws. But I will say that if it does pass, I think there will be some court challenges to it right away that would stall its implementation for quite some time. But again, as mayor, we will abide by the law and we'll do what we need to do as a city to defend the city's position.
About 2 months to Election Day. What's the next 60 days look like?
Well, today I have 10 events. It's really multiplied over the last few weeks. We've got our 300 $10 donations to qualify for matching funds. I'm running as a clean candidate. From here on out, it's a sprint to the finish line. I'm going to do everything I can to get my message out to the city of Tucson. about how great a place this is to live, and if we all work together and jump in, we can solve some of these problems.
All right, thanks for sitting down with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Improving public education is a common talking point in any election, including Tucson's. While Red for Ed led to pay raises for teachers statewide, underfunding remains a persistent challenge. That's according to Pima County Superintendent of Schools Dustin Williams. Lorraine spoke to him recently about ongoing issues in the classroom.
Last year, the big talk was Red for Ed, more funding in the classrooms. The state legislature said, okay, here's the money. Doesn't necessarily fix all of our problems, though.
It definitely does not fix all our problems, and it definitely can't stop. The governor's 20 by 2020 is a significant step in the right direction. It's desperately helping these schools, but if it stops at 2020, we're going to be right back to where we are. And we still have a long way to go, especially when we're talking teachers and champions in the classroom.
Arizona still ranks toward the bottom, though, or nearly at the bottom, in a lot of different ratings and reports. What does that mean for right now in the interim?
Right now, that's a bad image nationally. You'll see that number 49 pop up all the time, or you'll see 50th for elementary teachers' pay. And so that's a bad image that we have, especially if you're someone Googling education in Arizona. And what that also means is when you're a professional thinking about getting into the industry, you want to be in an area where you rank good. I mean, people want to go to good teams when they play sports. The same thing as when you get into a profession. So when we have these low rankings, it doesn't help grow the profession.
The state legislature, the governor said, okay, more money for other support items, things like school resource officers or counselors. As we know, there are counselors missing from schools. I think the number is 1 to 800. How do we get there?
So we rank last in the nation of counselor to ratio. It's actually 1 per 900. The way we get there, again, is you have to fund these positions, and these positions are desperately needed, especially when you see the statistics of students and mental health and where we're going, and the suicide rates, which are alarming, and just the safety and well-being of our children. And most importantly about an SRO is we don't want them policing. We want them to be a relationship builder and basically like a counselor.
You're superintendent of Pima County schools. There are some schools that are doing very well. There are others who are still in a whole lot of need. Why is there such an imbalance when it comes to certain demographics?
That's a really great question. And a lot of it comes to the leaderships of these individual districts and the thinking outside the box and also the resources around them. Some of these districts are fortunate to have income levels or the amount of money that people make around their schools. They're wealthy, and so they can donate and help schools, and every dollar goes a long way, and I mean a long way.
And it's not just the tax revenue. You're saying that there are people who could kick in tax donations, for example. Absolutely.
So if you have families that can afford for district schools or public schools the $400 tax credit every year, if all the families can basically afford to do that, that is a tremendous effort for those schools. If you have schools and parents that can't afford it, those are just dollars and opportunities that aren't available.
I know we've talked a lot about challenges in schools, but there are probably some gains, some things that you do want to tout. What do people need to know about the good things that are happening in schools?
The people that are in the classroom are the hardest working individuals in the world. That's what we see all the time when we go into schools. So we will see some of the dilapidated buildings and shortages of teachers, but when we see those teachers working with those kids, we see smiles on their faces, we see the students working really, really hard, and we just see a good energy in the room, and that's what's really, really positive about the community in Pima County.
Dustin Williams, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Schools across Arizona face many of the same hurdles related to funding and retention. Our next story looks at how one district in southern Arizona has managed to overcome those obstacles. Lorraine now takes us to Nogales.
All right, time. Were you able to speak about it for 35 seconds? How many of you said yes? How many of you no? Okay, this is why we're practicing.
This is honors English at Nogales High School.
Tell us about your favorite holiday. Ready, go.
Intense and fast-paced, today these students are tasked with delivering an efficient and effective speech.
I want you to get an idea of where you're at.
Elisa Lopez has taught at Nogales High School for 10 years. Every year, she crafts a curriculum that keeps students challenged.
One of our biggest things is our capstone project, which is the senior exhibition, and it is made up of 3 parts. We have them write an argumentative essay that gets sent to the U of A to get graded. Then they complete a portfolio and a presentation, which requires them to make, create, or do something as part of their project. So it's 20 hours of project, 5 hours of community service, and that's the biggest thing that takes over their senior year, but it's also something that will prepare them for the future. So we focus on just making sure that we are kind of aligning with what they will see at the university level so that they will be prepared once they leave our school.
It sounds rigorous. Do you hear from students that it's challenging?
We do, but I think what overpowers that is the feedback that we get from former students. I hear all the time about how beneficial it was for them to learn how to write a quality paper following the formats that they're using at their universities, and they come back and say, we took so long doing this, and now I can do this in such a short amount of time where it doesn't even compare to how we did it in high school, but that helped me prepare to what we're doing now. So I think the fact that students are scared when we initially begin the school year, once they kind of figure out that we have a manual, we have a great support system, and we guide them through the process, that they realize that overall they end up being passionate about it rather than intimidated by it.
Are there safeguards in place to catch them should they fail?
Yes. So obviously if they're struggling or if they fail, then we would either ask them to go to summer school, but we try to prevent that. So we try to be proactive. So teachers, if they have students that are struggling, they will let us know. So I am the coordinator, but it's not the only person that they can turn to. They can turn to our department head or our admin, where we will intervene and say, okay, you're struggling with this. What can we do to help you? Can we find a different mentor? I offer evening tutoring sessions where I help them with their paper. We offer editing strategies. So we try to be proactive so that it doesn't get to the part where they might not pass at the end of the year.
That attitude and those support systems may be what makes the Nogales Unified School District so successful.
Our standards are high and the accountability is there.
That's Fernando Parra, a longtime teacher, principal, and now superintendent of the Nogales Unified School District. He's also an alumni of the Nogales school system.
Very high sense of pride, not only by the students, but a sense of pride of the parents and the community to make sure that we push the students to be successful and to follow through.
There are 10 schools in this border town. Of the nearly 6,000 students, 98% are Latino and nearly 40% live in poverty. But for decades, this district has boasted one of the highest graduation rates in the state. Across Arizona, high schools average about a 77% graduation rate. In Nogales, it's 98%, and it's been that way for years. Throughout the district, students have access to sports, clubs, and programs to ensure students know they're cared for.
We also have a monitoring system, an attendance follow-through, that if a student is absent from school, we call the parents automatically, immediately, to see why the student was not at school. And so that goes from kindergarten all the way to the higher levels, to the graduation, to the high school, where students are monitored, their attendance every period. So if a student is off first, second period, the parents will get immediate contact right away, notifying them that they're not at school.
You know that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Are you suggesting that in a small town like this, it's harder to drop out of school because everyone knows where you are?
Exactly, and part of that is the partnership and the community and the parents, because the parents have a very high sense of value in education, and that is, I mean, the partnership that we have with parents. The parents are very involved, not only in the athletic programs, but they're involved in their education overall, and it makes a difference, and the parents are supportive of the programs that we have. Anything that we ask of the parents, they're there.
You've been in education for nearly 3 decades. One of the terms that is sort of emerging, I think, over the last few years has been social promotion. What do you say to people, who might be looking at this and saying, okay, the kids are there, they're enrolling, but are they getting anything from this education? Are they just graduating because they show up every day?
Well, I think that the measures that we've taken, I think not only are they graduating, but we've seen the results of the students that are accepted to higher education, which is a very high percentage as well. Students attending not only the state universities. They're attending our local college, community college, and they're also excelling beyond that. Just recently, 2 of our top students are going to Stanford University. They've been accepted to Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, you name it, our students are there. And they're not only there, they're actually top students at the university level as well. So we know that we're not only preparing them, just passing them through, they actually are being prepared to go to higher learning or the workforce if they choose to do so.
The district office sits in the former high school, a 100-year-old building. Photos of every graduating class line the walls, a symbol of success. The perception of people from a border town is that you face different challenges than those in urban, more populated communities. You're a product of this community, of this school system. Would you say that students here face different challenges than other kids in the state of Arizona?
Growing up here in Nogales myself, we've always had a sense of pride of being able to have a bicultural education, a bilingual education, be able to have the best of both worlds, living in ambos Nogales, as we call it, and being able to have that culture. I think I looked at it, and in my experience, it was an advantage being able to not only be bilingual, but be biliterate, because most of our students, by the time they finish high school, they can dominate 2 languages in English and Spanish. In this case, we're actually fortunate to be able to provide that.
Back in the classroom with Miss Lopez, also Nogales graduate, we get a sense of what makes this place so special.
If you were a teacher, what subject would you teach? And saying I would never be a teacher is not an option. What would you teach? Ready, set, go.
I asked the superintendent this, and I'll ask you, what makes this place so special? Because the numbers, the poverty rate, the graduation rates, by all indications, they shouldn't match where they are. So what's the secret to success here?
My single word would be love. The love for teaching from our teachers, the love and respect that we get from the students. It just builds a support system around these students and the parental involvement that all shows them that we love them and we want them to succeed. So I think the love that we show to our profession, to the students, to staff, to the community, I think that's what makes our place successful. Bye guys, see you tomorrow. Bye. You too.
And that's all for now. Thanks for joining us. To get in touch, visit us on social media or send an email to arizona360@azpm.org. Let us know what you think. Lorraine will be back in studio next week. See you then.